Everybody is afraid of what they will be thought of and if the narrative that the people project onto them is aligned with what they believe about themselves to be true. But at every level, we hit a wall of perception, a fear of perception. You know, at first it was for me posting online, and then I did it and it started to work, and then I overcame that, if you will. And then it was, the audience got bigger, and then I got canceled for the first time. This happened last year too. It was about a different thing. And then the fear of perception kind of crept in there. And then maybe it was my first public speaking event in front of a couple of hundred people, and the fear of perception came back in. You're inadequate, you're not enough, you can't sit with us, you're not good enough, whatever, when we were a kid and we chose to believe that thing. The fear of perception gets to everybody, but there's a level to it for everyone. Your fear of perception is much higher than the person at home listening to this or sitting in their car on their drive to work right now. But at some point you hit a level where you go, what will they think of me if I do this? There's something within you that could hit. Maybe it's a new style of content. Maybe it's throwing out that certain joke that you really know is pushing it in the new talk. Maybe it's being vulnerable to a degree that you've never been online before because that's not what the other guys are doing. So what will those guys think of me? Because you're batting in a league that's pretty high. What will those guys think of me if I say something totally different in my videos? It's there somewhere. But I think too many people view it as a fight. I can overcome the fear of perception, or if I can conquer the fear of perception. The goal is not to overcome the fear of perception, it's to stay tapped in with inspiration. Because you're inspired until you hit the wall. You know, the content was flowing for me and I was super inspired in creating a bunch, and then the first wall was boom, canceled because I said something polarizing. This was, like I said, a year plus ago. I made a fat joke that was pretty it was off color, but it was funny. And that was where it first crept in. Big creators started saying crazy stuff about me that wasn't true. And then I got blocked from inspiration. I didn't know what to create because I was worried what they will think of me with what came next. And so if the goal is not to overcome the fear of perception, but to stay tapped into inspiration, then that shifts it from a fight to more of a dance. It's like everybody wants to maximize their potential, but I don't think that's the game. I think you don't want to maximize your potential. You want to know deeply the parts of you that don't want you to do that. Because when I decided to do seminars last year, there was a part of me that went, what if nobody shows up? Maybe a fear you had, selling tickets across the world, maybe not. But that fear crept in. And so then the job is not, oh, let me just bury that. The job is then, let me go explore that part of me that thinks nobody will show up so I can get to, as I said earlier, is this true? Why is that kid in me so afraid that nobody will come to my birthday party, right? That's the adult equivalent of the speaking tour I did last year. And so through deeply understanding and knowing the parts of us that don't want us to maximize our potential, it is only in doing that the fear of perception falls away. But there's nowhere to get. That's the game, dude. Like, that's the game. There's nowhere to get. It's an exponential curve. It never touches zero. For every new level, there's a new devil. I love that quote. And when you went from your first episode on your couch in the UK to top 50 to top 25 to now 8, there's a fear that creeps in at every point, something that you have to work through. But I think the secret is knowing deeply the part of you that says you don't deserve that, you can't have that. And instead of saying that's wrong, familiarize yourself with it. And then you can process it. And that's the difference between unprocessing your emotion and being run by your emotion. Because the two decisions you make, if you listen to the narrative, I'm not enough, versus observe it and understand it and move through it, are wildly different decisions. So that's what the fear of perception is to me. It's the goal to stay tapped into the inspiration, what I believe the messages that God is placing on my heart are. And that's why my content is so diverse. One day I'll make a video about grief and what I learned from the death of my father. And the next day it's the fucking review of the Coke-flavored Oreo, or the Oreo-flavored Coke Zero. My most viral video ever, classically, which is hilarious. It was just inspiration. It was following the inspiration. And in doing that, I've built a business out of it. But conventional rules would tell me, well, you're not sticking to the framework and the structures and the virality. It's all bullshit. So the goal is to stay tapped in to inspiration by dancing with that fear of perception. I would have these feelings of, why do I care this much about resistance training, progressive overload? Why do I want to learn about hormesis and heat exposure and listen to Dr. Rhonda Patrick talk for 3 hours about those things with Joe Rogan? Why do I care what Chris Williamson and Andrew Huberman are going to talk about for 2 hours, and when I go talk about it to my friends, they go, sick, dude. And I just had this one friend, it was me and Will, and he was up in New York at college and I was down in Georgia. And so we'd do these things we called neat chats, where we'd go out and go for a walk. non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Very good.
Walking. Neat chats. He just texts me like neat and we go. And we do downloads on the podcast we were listening to, but we were each other's only outlet, and that can feel lonely. And I remember a girl I was dating at the time saying, I talked to her about the first time I heard about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And I went, this is groundbreaking fucking information. I've got to tell the world. Like, the British are coming. The British are coming. The AMCC is growing. The AMCC
Fuck you,
is
it's
growing.
boring.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a very loving, you should like make content or something.
You should talk about this.
Yeah.
But not to me.
But not to me. That's exactly
It'd be
right.
really great if you didn't talk to me about it.
That's exactly right. And at the time, it felt like rejection. But in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, I can't expect you to care about the things I care about. So for me, this period of losing weight when I was overweight. I lost 60 pounds when I was 21 and kept the weight off. Became passionate about understanding that it's actually not that hard. My life got better when I did that. People treated me better. My energy was better. My clothes fit. I felt better about myself. Look good, feel good, play good. Why does everybody think this is so hard? And then it got deeper. My grandma died of Alzheimer's, so I became interested in cognitive decline as it pertains to exercise and lifestyle. And this passion just kept growing within me, where all I was consuming was podcasts and information on this at any chance I could, but I wasn't really doing anything with it other than my own benefit. And I realize now so clearly looking back that that was God preparing me for this. I use everything I learned over that 7-year period in my job every day. And people ask me, how do you know all this? I just spend 6 years alone walking by yourself, listening to podcasts for 1,000 hours. That's what it takes. And that was my lonely chapter. And it felt like it was for nothing. And looking back, I laugh at the idea of that because it's part of why I'm in this room with you, was my obsession with those things with no seeming or visible horizon of payoff in the future. You know, what does Hormozy say? Being able to do the work without the promise or expectation of it paying off at any given point. I did that, and eventually it paid off. But that's where my love came from, and that's where the understanding I tell people, if you feel like you've outgrown, in your words, you've outgrown your old group and you haven't found your new one yet, that is a barometer that you're actually on exactly the path that you're supposed to be. At least that's my take, and it's what I've seen in people who consider themselves high performers as well. And I think you feel similarly, given that clip that